Hold on, we are almost there.
The mermaid's scales caught the dying sunlight like shattered glass. Bola froze on the riverbank, her empty water pot still balanced on her head. There, half submerged in the muddy shore, lay a mermaid. Not an old woman, not a sick stranger. A mermaid, with silver blue scales covering her arms, her neck, her weathered face. Her tail, long and powerful, lay twisted in the shallow water, unmoving. The mermaid's chest rose and fell in shallow, desperate gasps. Her eyes, deep blue like the bottom of a well, fluttered open and found Bola's face. "Please," the mermaid whispered, her voice like water over stones. "Help me." Bola's feet wanted to run. Every child in Ibene knew the stories. River people stole babies. They drowned fishermen. They cursed anyone foolish enough to touch them. The mermaid's hand lifted from the mud, reaching toward Bola, trembling with effort. Tears carved paths down her scaled cheeks. Bola's heart pounded against her ribs. She took one step back, then stopped. This creature was someone's grandmother, someone's mother. The scales didn't change that. The tail didn't change that. Bola set down her pot and waded into the shallow water. The mermaid's skin felt cold and slick under Bola's hands, like touching a fish fresh from the net. The scales were smooth, catching on Bola's calloused fingers as she gripped the mermaid's shoulders and pulled. "God help me," Bola whispered. The mermaid was heavier than she looked. Bola dragged her onto the bank, her feet slipping in the mud, her arms burning with effort. The mermaid's tail left a silver streak across the red clay. Bola glanced toward the village path. Empty. Thank God. She positioned the mermaid on her back, the way women carried firewood. The tail draped over Bola's shoulder, scales pressing against her neck. The mermaid's breath came hot and fast against Bola's ear. 1 foot forward, then another. Bola's legs shook. Sweat poured down her spine. But she didn't stop until she reached her small compound. Her daughters sat outside, grinding pepper. 8-year-old Temi looked up first. Her pestle clattered to the ground. "Mama, what is that?" "Open the door," Bola gasped. "Now." Inside, Bola laid the mermaid on her own sleeping mat. In the dim light, she could see clearly now. Scales covered half the mermaid's body, in patches that shimmered even without sunlight. Her breathing rattled in her chest. Her skin burned with fever despite feeling wet to the touch. "Mama, why does she have a fish tail?" 6-year-old Kemi whispered. "She's a mermaid. She's sick. We're going to help her." Bola's voice left no room for argument. "Bring water. Bring cloths. Quickly." The girls obeyed, their eyes wide with fear and wonder. All night, Bola wiped the mermaid's fevered body with cool water. The mermaid shook and thrashed, crying out in a language that sounded like rushing rivers and crashing waves. Sometimes her eyes opened, unseeing, lost in fever dreams. Bola sang to her, soft lullabies, the same songs she'd sung to her daughters when they were babies. She spooned water between the mermaid's cracked lips, drop by patient drop. The first night bled into the second day. Neighbors knocked. "Bola, are you well? We haven't seen you." "I'm sick," Bola called through the closed door. "Please, leave me to rest." The second day became the second night. The mermaid's fever burned hotter. Her scales, which had been dull and gray, now looked almost black. She thrashed so violently that Bola had to hold her down, afraid she'd hurt herself. "Stay with me," Bola whispered, gripping the mermaid's scaled hand. "Please, don't go." The third day arrived with weak sunlight filtering through the thatched roof. Bola's eyes felt full of sand. She hadn't slept in 3 nights. Her daughters sat hungry in the corner. There was no food left. But they didn't complain. Then, something changed. The mermaid's breathing slowed, deepened. The terrible heat began to fade. Her scales, which had looked dead and ashen, started to shimmer again with faint color. As the sun set on the third day, the mermaid's eyes opened, clear and focused for the first time. She looked at Bola. Tears filled those impossible blue eyes. "You stayed," she whispered, "even knowing what I am, even fearing the curse." Bola's throat tightened. "I couldn't leave you to die." The mermaid's scaled hand touched Bola's face with surprising gentleness. "I am called Yamoja. I am one of the ancient ones who dwell in the deep waters." She paused, gathering strength. "I came to the surface to search for my granddaughter. She ran away, fell in love with a human man." Sadness crossed her face. "But the sun weakened me. I collapsed by the river. I would have died there. Can you return to the water now?" Yamoja sat up slowly, testing her strength. Her scales caught the lamplight, throwing dancing reflections across the walls. "Yes, I must return before moonrise, or I'll weaken again." She turned to Bola. "What do you want as payment for saving my life?" "Nothing. I only wanted to help." Yamoja smiled, and suddenly Bola could see how beautiful she was despite her age. "That is why you deserve payment, child. Those who help without expecting reward are the ones most worthy of it." "I don't need—" "You are a potter," Yamoja said, looking toward the small workshop visible through the door. "And you struggle." Bola lowered her eyes. No point denying it. "From this night forward, your pots will make themselves," Yamoja said. "Shape one, and more will appear while you sleep. The river spirits will bless your craft. You will never struggle again." "That's too much." "It is done." Yamoja stood, strength flowing back into her body like water filling a vessel. "A life debt must be repaid. The river always balances its debts." She moved toward the door. "Will I see you again?" Bola asked. Yamoja paused. "Perhaps. But remember, magic attracts attention, both good and bad. Be wise with this gift." Her eyes grew serious. "If danger comes, call my name into the river water. I will hear you." Bola and her daughters followed the mermaid to the riverbank. With each step, Yamoja moved more gracefully, more fluidly, as if remembering how to be water instead of flesh. At the river's edge, she turned one last time, raised her hand in farewell. Then she dove. Her body slipped beneath the surface without a splash, as if the water had simply opened to receive her and closed again. The river lay quiet and dark, reflecting stars. That night, Bola shaped one simple water pot and set it aside to dry. Exhaustion dragged her down like an anchor. She slumped against the workshop wall and slept. When she woke, morning sunlight streamed through the door. Beside her single pot sat 3 more, identical, perfectly formed, already dry. Bola's hands flew to her mouth. She touched them with trembling fingers. Real, perfect, impossible. "The river always balances its debts," she whispered. Within a week, Bola had more pots than she'd made in a month. She sold them all at market, bought rice and beans and palm oil and dried fish. Her daughters ate until their bellies were round. Within 2 weeks, people from neighboring villages came to buy her pots, paying good money. Within a month, Bola repaired her leaking roof, bought new wrappers, bought a goat. Her life transformed. The villagers noticed. "How is Bola making so many pots?" they whispered. "She must be working day and night. Or using dark magic," the jealous ones muttered. 3 months after Yamoja left, a woman named Sade appeared at Bola's workshop. Sade's eyes were always hungry, always wanting what others had. "You must teach me your secret," Sade said, her voice honey-sweet, her eyes sharp as thorns. "There is no secret. I just work hard. Everyone works hard. Said moved closer, her gaze darting around the workshop. But you became wealthy so quickly. There must be something special. I'm blessed. God has been kind. Sadi's eyes narrowed. Someone said they saw you carrying a mermaid into your house 3 months ago. A mermaid from the river. Bola's hands froze on the clay. That's nonsense, she said, keeping her voice steady. Is it? Sade smiled coldly. What if you made a deal with river spirits? What if your success comes from dark magic? I made no deal. The elders should know about this. Sade turned toward the door. The village should know your wealth comes from dealing with river demons. She left before Bola could speak. That evening, 5 village elders arrived at Bola's compound, their faces hard as stone. Sade says you're using river magic, said Elder Chukwu, the oldest among them. She says you brought a river demon into the village. I helped a sick mermaid, Bola said, her voice strong despite her fear. I nursed her back to health. That's all. A mermaid? Elder Obi's eyebrows rose. You admit it? Yes, but she wasn't a demon. She was dying. I couldn't leave her. The elders exchanged grave looks. River people bring curses, Elder Namdi said. By bringing her here, you may have cursed us all. She blessed me for helping her. She did no harm. She gave you magic, Elder Chukwu interrupted, while others struggle. I share what I have. I help my neighbors. Nevertheless, you brought a river spirit into our village. The penalty is clear. You must be cast out. The words hit Bola like a physical blow. Cast out? But my daughters. You should have thought of that before dealing with river demons. Elder Inamdi's voice was ice. Please, I only tried to help someone who was dying. I only showed mercy. You have 7 days to leave Abine, Elder Chukwu said. If you're still here after that, we will burn your house. That is the law. They turned and walked away. Bola's daughters came running out, tears streaming down their faces. They'd heard everything. Mama, what will we do? Temi sobbed. Bola had no answer. She held her children and wept. That night, after her daughters cried themselves to sleep, Bola walked to the river. The full moon turned the water to liquid silver. She knelt at the bank where she'd found Yamoja and cupped water in her hands. Yamoja, I need your help. For a moment, nothing, just the river flowing, indifferent and eternal. Then the water began to glow. Blue-green light rose from the depths, growing brighter. The water's center began to swirl. From that swirling vortex rose a young mermaid, her entire body covered in shimmering scales. Water flowed around her like living fabric. Her eyes were the same deep blue as Yamoja's, but filled with anger. Who calls my grandmother's name? She demanded. I'm Bola. Your grandmother gave me a gift because I saved her life. But now the villagers want to cast me out. She told me to call if I needed help. The young mermaid's eyes flashed. My grandmother helped you, and now you trouble her? Humans are ungrateful. Please, I'm in danger. Good. Perhaps you shouldn't have meddled in affairs beyond your understanding. She began to sink back into the water. Wait, Bola cried. Are you the granddaughter? The one who ran away? The mermaid froze, slowly rose again. What do you know of that? Your grandmother was searching for you. She was worried. She said you fell in love with a human man. Pain crossed the mermaid's scaled face. My grandmother was right. Humans and river people cannot mix. Her voice broke. The man I loved, when he saw my true form, he called me a monster. He threw stones at me until I fled back to the water. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I've been hiding in the shallow waters ever since, too ashamed to return to the deep. Bola's heart ached for her. I'm sorry. Love shouldn't end that way. The young mermaid studied Bola's face for a long moment. You saved my grandmother's life? Yes. And you ask nothing now, even though you're in danger? I only wanted to protect my daughters. If you can't help me, I understand. But please, tell your grandmother I'm grateful for her gift, even though it brought me trouble." Silence stretched between them. Finally, the mermaid spoke. "My name is Ife. I will help you, not because you demand it, but because you showed mercy to my grandmother when you didn't have to. The river must honor that debt." "Thank you. But understand something. The gift was meant to help you, but humans complicate everything with jealousy and fear. If you want to stay in this village, the magic must stop. The pots will no longer multiply." Bola nodded, accepting the loss. "I understand. However," Ife said, a small smile appearing, "you've earned wealth these 3 months, yes? Food stored, money saved." "Yes." "Then you're not poor anymore. You can survive without magic, and I'll give you one final gift. From me, not from my grandmother." Ife dove beneath the water and emerged holding something in her hands. She swam to shore and placed it in Bola's palms. A river pearl, perfectly round, gleaming white in the moonlight. "This pearl is worth more than all the pots you could make in a lifetime," Ife said. "Sell it in the big city, not your village. It will secure your daughter's future." Bola stared at it, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, Ife. One more thing. Tomorrow the elders will come again. Invite them to your workshop. Let them watch you make a pot. Let them see no magic happens in daylight. But they've already condemned me." "Trust me." Ife's smile turned mysterious. "And make sure Sade is there too." She slipped back into the water and disappeared. The next morning, Bola sent her daughters to invite the elders and Sade to her workshop. They came, along with curious villagers. They gathered around, faces skeptical and suspicious. "Show us this proof," Elder Chukwu said, arms crossed. Bola sat at her wheel. Her hands moved with practiced skill, shaping a beautiful water pot. The villagers watched in silence. No magic, no supernatural light, no multiplying pots. Just a woman, and clay, and skill. When she finished, Bola stood. "You see, I'm just a potter. I work with my hands. There's no magic here." Sade's face twisted with confusion. "But how do you make so many?" "I work day and night. I sleep little. I'm driven by the need to feed my daughters. That's my only magic, a mother's determination." The magic had ended last night as Ife promised. From now on, Bola would make pots only by her own labor. Elder Obi stroked his beard. "We saw no magic." "Perhaps we were hasty," Elder Namdi admitted. Before anyone could speak further, the river began to glow. Blue-green light erupted from the water. The villagers gasped and turned. Rising from the depths was a magnificent procession of mermaids and mermen. Dozens of them, their scaled bodies shimmering, their hair flowing like water itself. At the front was Yemoja, looking regal and terrible. Beside her was Ife. Around them were others, all covered in shimmering scales, all glowing with otherworldly light. They remained in the water, but their presence commanded absolute attention. Yemoja's voice rang out, clear as a bell. "People of Ibene, I am Yemoja of the deep waters. 3 moons ago I was dying on your riverbank. Only one among you showed mercy. Only one risked curse and condemnation to save a stranger's life." She pointed at Bola. "Bola the potter gave me shelter. She nursed me through 3 days and nights of fever. She fed me from her own scarce food. She asked nothing in return. For this kindness, the river spirits blessed her craft. But now you condemn her for showing mercy?" The elders looked at each other, shame creeping across their faces. "The river people have watched over Ibene for generations," Yemoja continued, her voice stern. "We've kept your water clean. We've guided fish to your nets. We've protected your children from drowning. We do this because we honor those who honor us. But if you drive out the one person who showed true mercy, then the river will turn away from Ibene forever." A collective gasp. "The choice is yours. Keep Bola and continue to have the river's blessing. or cast her out and face the river's silence. The procession of mermaids sank back beneath the water. The glowing light faded. The river looked ordinary once more. Silence. Then Elder Chukwu fell to his knees before Bola. "Forgive us. We were blind. We let jealousy cloud our judgment." The other elders knelt. Then the villagers. Even Sade, her face pale, knelt and bowed her head. Only Bola remained standing, tears on her face. "Rise," she said gently. "All of you. I hold no anger. Fear makes us all foolish sometimes. I only ask that we judge each other by our actions, not by rumors and suspicion." Elder Chukwu placed his hand on Bola's shoulder. "You will not be cast out. You are honored. From this day forward, you will be known as Bola the Merciful." In the days that followed, the villagers treated Bola with respect. They brought gifts. They apologized. Sade came privately, her head bowed. "I was wrong. I let envy poison my heart. Can you forgive me?" Bola embraced her. "I forgive you. But you must forgive yourself, too. Envy is a burden. Let it go." Bola took the river pearl to the big city and sold it for more money than she'd ever imagined. With it, she built a bigger workshop and hired other women from the village, teaching them pottery. She built a school for the village children. She helped repair the village well. But she never forgot the real gifts, not the multiplying pots, but the deeper lessons. Mercy is never wasted. Kindness to strangers can change your life. We are all connected. Every full moon, Bola poured palm wine into the river as an offering. Sometimes she'd see ripples moving against the current, and she'd smile, knowing Yemoja and Ife were there, watching over her. Her daughters grew up strong and kind, learning their mother's trade and wisdom. They learned to judge people by their hearts, not their appearance. They learned that showing mercy, even when it's frightening, even when others condemn you, is always right. And Bola became known not just as a potter, but as a wise woman whom people sought for counsel. When villagers argued or jealousy arose or fear made people cruel, they came to Bola the Merciful. And she would tell them the story of the mermaid with shimmering scales, the story of choosing compassion over fear, the story of how kindness, even when it costs you everything, will always be repaid. Years later, when Bola was old, sitting by the river with her grandchildren, she would say, "The river always balances its debts. But more than that, the universe always balances its debts. What you give in mercy, you receive in blessing. What you plant in kindness, you harvest in abundance. Remember this always." And the river would flow on, whispering its agreement, carrying her words downstream to where the mermaids dwelled in their deep water palaces, where Yemoja and Ife would smile and nod, knowing that the greatest magic is not in multiplying pots or granting pearls, but in transforming a human heart from fear to love, from selfishness to generosity, from cruelty to mercy. That transformation is the real gift. That is what makes a life worth living. If you enjoyed the story, like this video, and subscribe for more wonderful stories like this.